Hello there. This is Lady She from How Mike with Lady She podcast. I am excited on today. You guys know I'm coming from New York with that good high energy, and I'm excited to speak about therapy. Let me allow my guest to introduce herself. How are you?
Hello, everyone. Hey, Lady She, how are you all doing? My name is Shan'Trail King. I am a licensed professional counselor associate under the supervision of Unica Willis, who is my supervisor, but also the owner of Ear to Hear Consulting and Counseling. And I am excited to speak about mental health matters on today on Lady She's podcast.
Yes, mental health matters. That is the topic. That is a topic everywhere. And I'm honestly grateful to be a part of this conversation because it is so essential right now, just with the atmosphere, just with the energy that is out there right now. We have to, be intentional with the conversation that we are having and have a purpose in it. So I felt the need I was just speaking to Ms. Shan'Trail. Thank you so much again, Shan'Trail, for coming on. I was just sharing with her that I felt like, this particular conversation should kind of have like a title to it because there is so much going on. So we came up with the name Therapy on Purpose, dealing with trauma. And right now, if you are alive and breathing, you can see that there's a lot of trauma going on. And you know what? I kind of realized some of the trauma is knowing and some of it's unknowing. You agree?
Definitely. There are so many different forms of trauma. And what I think we generally do as a people is we don't stop and recognize it. We may not understand how trauma or past traumas that we don't deal with, how it manifests itself in our body into potential medical issues. So there are so many different types of trauma that people don't really stop to think about. So I am so ready to dig into this show.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. So I would like for you to first just share exactly, and it's her and her husband. So I would absolutely just like you to just give us just a little snippet of what your niche is for you and your husband in the practice.
Okay. So basically our niche is relationship. So we work with individual, we work with couples, we work with families, adult, everyone that we work with are of the age 18 and older. We believe that it's important to do the foundational work with the grown-ups. So that's why we don't personally work with children. And we deal with everything relational. So anything that an individual deal with in relation with each other is what we really like to focus on and help people. And some people may say, well, I'm good with my relationships. But are you really? Or do you just think in your mind that you're good and you actually may not be? So our niche is anything relational we like to work with individuals.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. So now, tapping into the subject of trauma, so much comes to mind. Ms. Shan'Trail and I were just speaking about, some personal things connected to trauma, racial trauma. And we both have anecdotes. Unfortunately, we both had anecdotes. And unfortunately, we are watching a lot of these things unfold literally before our eyes, between the news, between social media. And it's absolutely disheartening. So one of my questions, to you, Shan'Trail, dealing with relationships, in your profession, how do people deal with trauma? How do you address trauma as a therapist when people come to you saying, this has been affecting me for years? I've been operating under this, but I kind of realized I'm actually traumatized. So, what happens if I come to you feeling that way?
First, what we do is we like to look at what does trauma mean to you? Because oftentimes in society, we're honest with ourselves. What someone views as trauma, someone else may not because it's not happening or has not happened to them, for example. And so we like to kind of get the client's view of what is trauma. What does that look like? And then as we're building our rapport and relationship as your therapist, and I'm saying we, let me kind of personalize it since, my husband's not sitting there with me, but as I build the relationship with you as your therapist, then we will, as the sessions go on, kind of go into the experiences that's tied with trauma and why, so it's never any judgment like, well, no, that's not trauma. Okay, why do you think it's racial? Why do you think it's spiritual? A professional therapist would never or should never come at a client like that.
Right.
It's kind of associating and discussing your experiences. And then even identifying beyond that, is it repeated trauma? Is it different forms of trauma? Because like I said, you mentioned racial trauma. You have spiritual trauma, you have emotional trauma, it's so much to it. But conversations like this are not too often had because a lot of people just don't want to talk about it,
Right.
and have the belief that if I don't talk about it, then I don't have to deal with it. But not dealing with it, how is it affecting yourself unknowingly in an adverse way because you choose not to deal with it? How is it manifesting itself in your body medically? So we look at all those things. That's something that I look at as a therapist, all those different factors, and then seeing how we can proceed forward, to help the individual. So those are just some of the things that I do as a therapist.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. So now, you mentioned, excuse me, I'm sorry, while you were speaking, I thought about how easily generational curses are created with trauma. Big mama dealt with Pa and he was doing his thing, as they say, Papa was a Rolling Stone type thing. So now you end up dating somebody who's kind of doing the same thing. And you feel like, I guess I'm supposed to stick around because Big Mama stuck around. She didn't work. He bought the check. She handled the bills and all that kind of stuff. So if I'm coming to you and I'm having issues in my marriage, right? And all I'm telling you is, I don't really know what his problem is. I'm telling you, I don't really know what his problem is. I feel like I'm being disrespected. I'm feeling like, I'm taking care of the children. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do with the house. He doesn't want me to work. I don't feel like I even care about myself because I'm showing up to this marriage where I feel less than, and he's acting like he doesn't get it. Is a therapist able to seek and ask questions where it'll unravel and make it known that this is learned behavior for him as well, where he was taught that I make the money and you just do as I say, you stay home with what's the saying, but barefoot and pregnant type thing, and you don't have any say so. This is what it is. So how does the therapist deal with a client in reference to that, without, because it's not that she wants out of the marriage, she loves her husband, but she just wants him to see, where she wants him to see her. So how does that work?
Then again, so if I'm in with a couple and having couples therapy, one of the things that I would like to do is something that you said. I like to look at the generational patterns, because oftentimes the generational patterns of both individuals, whether it be husband or wife, will manifest itself in the marriage. And so there may be the wife who has had, maybe she's seen where mom and dad work together. She comes from a loving home. Everything is positive and uplifting and life being spoken into everyone, very supportive, full of love, and they communicate in a positive way. And then you go and marry someone, and this can happen either way around, vice versa, to where that is not his mindset. So what I would like to do, or what I would do in therapy, is get to know both individuals, to have them, not that I identify, but where they can see the patterns. Because what we often do when it comes to marriage is we bring our foundation into the marriage. We bring only what we know, because yes, for those who are believers, those who are Christians, I've often heard they use the Bible as the foundation. However, there are, a lot of people, there's no rule book, if you will, to marriage, because this marriage may be different from that marriage. And so that could be some of the things. Then when it comes to the conversation that we have today, talking about trauma.
Right.
Well, what are some things that has happened maybe in the past that was traumatic for one or the other, where the expectation is, I expect you to act like this. So it's so many factors to where in therapy, when I go with clients, you can't just remain surface if both the husband and the wife want it to work. And so what often happens is when individuals come into the counseling room for marriage counseling, when I see individuals, what often happen or could happen is that, oh, the counselor is going to be on my side. And so it's going to be us against you. And it's like this team up. That's not what is supposed to happen. Right. It never should happen in therapy. I don't operate like that. Matter of fact, I make it clear when I see my couples, I am not on either individual's side. Mm-hmm. I'm working with you because the two of you come in here and you decide that you want something to change, or you want better, or you have a goal that the both of you want to work on. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, and it could be traumatic in this, a lot of times couples will not come to therapy unless there has been infidelity. That right. is like the main thing. But mm-hmm. like, as you were saying, it could be a communication issue, something as simple as that. It could be, you know, as you gave an example, the wife feels, well, I try my best, I try to do everything, and he just doesn't get it. You know, those are some simple things. However, going back to our first episode that we had together of Mental Health Matters, a lot of these things could be addressed in premarital counseling. So that way, the husband and the wife both know what they're getting into. But again, a lot of husbands and wives, not everyone, often are afraid to even pull back the onion layers in premarital counseling. Let's just get to the wedding. Let's just walk down the aisle. Let's just go to the honeymoon. And then after honeymoon phase, that the onion layers start to fall back.
Right.
So a lot of this could be rectified. Now, having counseling for your marriage throughout, amazing tool to have, because you're continuing to grow in your marriage with one another. So you're going to continue to learn tools to mm-hmm. grow and bring you closer together as husband and wife. But the greatest tool is to attend premarital counseling so you can make a conscious decision of what you're getting yourself into and not finding out on the back end.
Love that. That was great advice. Love that. Love that. You and your husband, you consider yourselves Christian counselors, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So have you ever had an encounter where one person wants to come to you for the obvious, you know, they want to hear godly counsel, but the other like doesn't believe in God?
Never had that situation as of yet. Generally either both are believers in their faith, you know, whether it be Christian or, you know, because most people think, let me kind of put this out there, if you will, that when you go to a Christian counselor, that you're going to get beat over the head with the Bible. And that's not the case. And so I've never had it like that. When I, as a Christian counselor, see a couple, I see the couple. I make no judgment of what their faith is or what is not. Mm-hmm. Let's address the issue that you're having between each other. Now, if the issue is, well, I'm a Christian and he's a Catholic, or she's a Muslim and he's Buddhist, then we can have the conversation, you know, about that. But I've never had that be the situation where that been a problem. I know, you know, to say this, and I know a lot of Christians believe, you know, that it's best to be of the same faith. I know a lot of married couples that are together and a lot of them are not of the same faith. Right, and their marriage still works. They just respect each other's faith.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. That always throws me when I hear that, because I'm like, but then how do you teach the kids?
From what I've heard, and this is not in the counseling room, so let me preface that. I'm not speaking about a particular case. I know a lot of friends that this is their situation, and I know a lot says that they allow their children to decide which one. The children will go to church with the mom or go to church with the dad, but they allow the children to decide. So I'm like, oh, okay, you know, if that's what works for you, then
yeah, right. If that's what works. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, all right. So premarital counseling, it really kind of should be like a must, if you care about being in a healthy marriage. Um, now, if you're in a position where you're going to counseling, one party stops showing up, but you're still showing up, you know, what do you do then?
Generally, if it's a couple that has come in and they have signed the paperwork to both attend counseling and one stops, generally for myself as a therapist, I don't continue to see the one because I contracted with the both of you to
Mm,
come to counseling as the both of you.
okay.
Um, for me, as a therapist, in the beginning, in the first session, when I sit down with a couple, I ask them as we're trying to work to see if we could be a good fit, the couple and myself as their therapist. I ask them, how serious are you about therapy? Each of
Right.
you, not together. How serious? Are you willing to do the work? I
Mhm.
educate them and let them know that things are not going to be easy. It may not be surface. Things may get a little rough, but are you committed to staying and working through it?
Mhm.
Now, if there is a situation where either the husband or the wife say, well, I don't think that I can do this, or whatever the case may be, I respect their decision, but I don't proceed forward with them in counseling because you're coming to couples counseling. So, in
Mhm.
order for things to change in your relationship, it's going to take the both of you. And then
Gotcha.
if the both of you are not present, then no change will probably take place for the
Right.
betterment in your marriage. So I ask the tough questions in the beginning as a
Okay.
therapist because I need to know how dedicated. And it's not just for couples, even with, my individual clients. Same thing. It's
Okay.
how dedicated are you to doing the work that needs to be done for the betterment of the goals that you are trying to reach to become a
Mhm.
better person. It's not
Mhm.
what I want as a therapist. It's
Right.
what is your goal? And this is a question I often ask. By the time we are done with therapy, what do you see it looking like on the other side? What do you see? What would you like to see? And the things that they say, that lets me know that that's their goal. And I reiterate that.
Right.
So I am very upfront and very direct in asking those questions of commitment because
Right.
it's a process.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. All right. So with a person, like we spoke earlier about generational curses and trauma, the subject is, mental health matters. How do you see people I love that you said, what do you want to see for the other side? What if you really don't know? Like, what if you just like, I know I need help? You just feel like something's missing. I don't know what the answer is. I just felt like I need to come to a professional. You know, are you able to give, how can I explain, like somewhat like a diagnosis and give like what the end result should be, like if you bring your car, to the place and you're like, okay, I need a diagnostic test or whatever, and then they tell you this is what you need, this is what you need, this is what you need. Are you able to do that for them? If they just kind of up in the air, like, I just feel like something's missing, I can't put my finger on it, maybe it's me who needs the help, maybe it's him who needs the help, but I know there's some type of glitch in our relationship.
Mm. Well, the thing that one of the tools that therapists have is assessments.
Okay.
So I could offer, generally, I do. I will offer an assessment for the couple to take, not together, but
Mhm.
individually. So the wife take the assessment, the husband take the assessment. And then, okay, next session, we can bring this to therapy. And this is what some of the things that we've seen, let's talk about it. As a therapist, it's not my job. And I kind of chuckle a little bit because, again, I'm happy for this conversation because a lot of people don't really know. They're afraid of therapy because they
Mhm.
don't know what therapy entails.
Right.
So that's why I'm happy that we're having this conversation. However, it is not my responsibility to say, well, I see this, this, and this, and then I'm automatically diagnosing you based off of my assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
That does not help the couple or an individual,
Mm-hmm.
that we are seeing. And so as discussions, I would provide an assessment, they would do it, we would talk about it. And then again, I would throw out that question probably in the second session, or I would give them homework on the first session and say, what would you like to see in your marriage? If it's a married couple, for example, what would you like to see by the time we're done with sessions? Most people say, well, I would like my wife to be like this, 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 that, and other. I would like my husband to be more attentive and more loving, and my love language, filling up my love tank. All these things is what most people would generally say.
Right.
But let me speak for myself, because I don't want to like bring all therapists, because everybody have their specialty. What I like to do, and what I love to hear and love to see, and it doesn't happen in the beginning, it happens through the process, is where a husband or a wife begin to recognize the things that they need to change within themselves for the betterment of the marriage.
Right.
That's the conversation. So what I noticed is, for example, what I noticed is about me, I don't allow my husband to communicate. That is one of the big struggles. Right. I don't allow him to communicate, because soon as I ask him a question, he say something out of his mouth. And again, this is just given the general. This is not something in my counseling. Soon as he says something out of his mouth, then I'm automatically responding.
Right.
So what I would share is, you're listening to respond. You're not listening to gain understanding. So that's a tool for free.
Absolutely. Go ahead with the free bar. Okay. So what is love language?
How I can say or define love language is what an individual, what I, Shan'Trail, consider to be love. Okay. What I consider to be love. Because oddly enough, where a lot of people think, no, love is the same thing. No, what could be love to you may not be love to me. So in speaking about our topic of trauma, an individual could have grown up in a home that was very dysfunctional. They could have seen abuse and all types of things like that. They could have seen money withheld, whether it be the wife controlling, as they say, the pocketbook, or the husband controlling the wallet, and one have to go and ask the other for money. That could be what an individual see as love. Because think about a child growing up in this type of environment. So then I know that I like you, but I'm bringing in, and I'm going to say it like this. Everybody has baggage. Everybody has baggage. And so could your baggage be trauma that you consider to be love? So a lot of people may feel that they're not being loved, let's say by example of what you use, the couple, by their husband and their wife. They're not loving me the way that I want to be loved. But the reality could be, what do you consider to be love? And have you effectively communicated that to your spouse? Because what could be love to you is, God forbid, your spouse punching you in the mouth. That's not love, that's abuse, and it's traumatic. Right. And what we are speaking about in today's topic. So it takes the individual to know what love is, their definition of love. Do you love yourself? And to be able to communicate that, and hopefully that you're not communicating that toxic, dysfunctional behavior is what love is to you, because that's all that you've seen and that's all that you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. So what happens, have you ever had a situation where you have a couple come in and you can see immediately that one is not into the other?
I mean, I have, but then again, like I said, going back to, I asked the questions. I asked, did you go to premarital counseling, and things like that. What do you feel are some barriers that are keeping you all from progressing forward? So I have seen it. And let me even say this, there has been times as a therapist that I have referred individuals to individual counseling.
Okay.
Okay, listen, you both are coming to me for marriage counseling. However, I would highly recommend that each of you go to individual counseling as well, because there are some things. Now, some may say, well, Shan'Trail, wait a minute. If we're already seeing you as a couple for counseling, why would we go to individual counseling?
Right.
Because there are some things that you may be going through individually that is affecting the marriage. So if you come contract with me, if you hire me as your therapist to be your marriage counselor for what you are struggling with or have difficulty or barriers in your marriage, then that's what I am supposed to address. I am not supposed to, by my ethical,
Right.
in the laws that we have here in this great state of Texas, see you as your marriage counselor and see you as your individual counselor.
Right.
That does not work.
Okay.
Because there are some things that you can work on that individually need to be done on the inside, more detailed things. Again, it could be trauma, it could be abuse, it could be anxiety. These could be things that, and more often than not, just in general and not just in the therapy room, but there are couples that are married right now, that are in relationship right now, that have been through traumatic experiences in their life, whether it be spiritual, racial, trauma within the home, that they haven't even spoken these things. Their husband and wife know nothing about it.
Right.
But because I don't speak about it, it could be associated with anger. And I'm always spewing anger and negativity to my husband or my wife, and they don't understand why. Going back to what you were saying, giving the kind of generic example of the wife feel like she's doing everything to make her husband happy, but he don't seem happy with nothing that I do. It's always negativity. Then the question would, kind of have to be raised if this was someone in my session. Okay, is it something maybe in your past? And I may not be even that blunt. What I would do is use a tool that we use in family counseling to where it's a visual for the husband and the wife to see that you didn't even think about. You have generations of trauma.
Right.
You have generations of abuse. You have substance abuse, all types of things that you never spoke about, because a lot of times we think that as husband and wife, that's in my past, or as a people, period. That's my past. I don't have to deal with that. But you don't understand how unknowingly that you're bringing that into your relationship with your husband or your wife, or a relationship that you have with coworkers, or whatever the case may be. So
Yeah.
it's a lot.
It is a lot, because I feel like when people come to therapy, the first thing you should be is honest. If you come in trying to, because I remember listening to someone say, basically to me, I feel like they were trying to drag their partner to therapy. Like, we need therapy. And the partner response was, okay, I'm going to sit down. I know what to say. And I'm like, how do you know what to say? You haven't met the person. So you already coming in with the wrong, do you understand what I'm saying? Because you don't know what's going to happen. So, which is probably why the person's trying to drag you in there, because you think you know everything, but you're clearly missing something if they want to take you there. And then your response to them is, I know what I'll tell them. That can't work. You're going to have to be honest, with yourself, and be honest, with the counselor. So thank you so much for making it clear that, if a couple come to you together for counseling, that it's a conflict. You can't be there, also their personal, separate counselor. I wanted you to kind of reiterate or tap into some of the different reasons that a person would go and have their own counseling as well as have counsel with you. Because what I'm thinking is, and something that's personal to me, and I think I shared with you after I read your book, make sure you guys get her book. We will talk about that, before we close as well. Oh my goodness. After I read Miss Shan'Trail's book, it kind of blew up, my life. I'll say it was confirmation. We all know how God works. He's amazing like that. Something will happen and he'll remind you, I need you to go back to this. So reading her book helped me to realize that I need personal counseling in reference to being molested as a child. I need to go see someone who that is their niche, that they deal with, trauma connected to sexual abuse, child sexual abuse. And I realized something like that can affect in your marriage. It can even cause issues with you. And I'm just going to be frank with all adults. It can even cause issues with you sexually with your partner, because you don't really know what'll trigger until it happens. So can you give us that was one, I feel like that was one. Can you give us other reasons that you would advise someone to see their own counselor while coming to you?
That a perfect example that you gave. So if there is trauma, if you recognize that you have anger issues, if you, oh my gosh, it's so many reasons. It could be spiritual trauma. I did not realize until during slash, I'm gonna say after the pandemic, because I don't know if we're completely through it. But during that time frame, a lot of individuals were talking about spiritual trauma. And so one of the things let me give this as an example, that a couple comes for counseling. You brought up the example earlier about how one may be of one religious faith and background and the other one not. And so one may be a Christian, one may be a Muslim, for example. Or one go to church, one don't go to church, because one was raised to go, be in the church, was raised up in the church or whatever. They may be Baptist, the other one doesn't go. And so something may have happened where, for example, I've dedicated my time, I'm doing this for God, I'm doing this for the Lord, and the people at the church, and no, I am not knocking any churches. I'm just speaking some truths and realities that in conversations with people outside of counseling, let me say that I have, these conversations have been had. And so one thing that people will often see, and you could probably think about family members that or coworkers or good friends, that where one go to church and the other one doesn't. And the one that go to church is mad because the one who doesn't go to church doesn't. But they thought let's say it's a female, right? I'm just going to paint a picture. And I'm not saying this is all females. But the female was raised up in the church. She goes to church. The husband does not. But she believes in her mind, because they didn't go to premarital counseling. She believes in her mind that once we get married, I'm not worried about it because he's going to start coming to church. Well, he don't go to church because he don't know anything about church. And then you're in church and you experience some trauma within the church. So this is your bag. As I was saying, we all have bags. This is your bag that you would need to address in individual counseling, because you have this issue. Well, my husband doesn't come, and then I go and I dedicate myself to church, and I'm there every time the church doors is open, and they treat me like this, and whatever the case may be, that is spilling over into your marriage.
Right.
It's causing issues. You didn't have a problem with your husband when he was your boyfriend and not going to church.
Right.
Maybe he came to visit once because he wanted to see what it was like, because he'd never been. Right. But he went once. So, okay, if I can get him to go once, then I can just get him to go. So these are some of the things that, yes, you can counseling, but this sounds like something that may need to be addressed in individual. And I'll tell you how I kind of lay out with my couples, how I lay things out. And me and my husband too, when we work together as a team, I love it. When they want me and my husband both to counsel them as husband and wife, that is my all-time favorite. Oh my God. So what we do is, so let's say me and my husband was doing it together, therapy with a couple. We're going to see you that first time. That second time, my husband will go and he will see the husband on the second appointment, and I will see the wife. And then discuss, me and my husband come together, and we're thinking about which therapeutic interventions and orientations, this is all counseling, big words, that we're going to use. So basically, the plan that we lay out. We come back together, all four of us, in the third session. I do that as an individual counselor.
Right,
I'm going
right.
to see the both of you the first time. I'm going to see the husband separate. I'm going to see the wife separate, and then come back together, and then we go forward.
Okay.
So in that separate, or maybe even in that third, I might say, now I'm not going to call you out in front of your spouse,
Right.
because then that leads to arguments at home. See, I told you was crazy. I
Mhm.
told you did. No, then that's defeating the whole
Right,
purpose of
right.
counseling. But I may have a one-on-one conversation and say, hey, these are some of the things that I noticed in therapy. It is totally up to you. I'm not forcing you to do anything, but my professional recommendation would be, we can continue on with marriage counseling. However, you may want to see an individual counselor as well. And that actually benefits. Seeing
Mhm.
individual counselors and seeing a marriage counselor, it benefits. It's even more beneficial for the couple. I'll say it like that.
Yeah, and it shows that you care enough for your marriage. And I feel like the attitude and behavior as such is it's something that'll help with the divorce rate, decreasing, because it's going in the wrong direction right about now.
Yes.
Divorce rate, is very high. Um, Going back to trauma and thinking about generational curses and being brought up in dysfunction, really wanting and having a desire to be, the first to do it so-called right, having premarital counseling, but realizing certain things, you brought up being a boyfriend, her being okay with it, being a boyfriend, that made me chuckle because so many do it. Unfortunately, so many do it. And I think that's part of the reason why the divorce rate is so high as well, because we kind of put things on our partners that aren't realistic. And it kind of goes back to what was the movie? Steve Harvey had a movie called oh, Think Like a Man, Act Like a Woman, Think Like a Man, and it was connected to his book that he wrote. But one of the things that I love that he said was, when a young lady asked about marriage, he said, well, he hasn't asked you because you haven't required him to.
Mm.
And I thought, I'm like, okay, that was a jewel. That was absolutely a jewel. So if you go into this, I guess, courting or shacking up, whatever you want to call it, for years, and you've been allowing them to deal with you in a certain fashion, I feel like you don't really have the right to say, okay, now you have to be like this.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel that people don't always see what they've created. And that becomes the trauma of the relationship, where you are trying to convince yourself that, well, if I've allowed you to do this long, you can at least do this for me. When no, it's no. It's actually kind of opposite. You've been allowing me to do this for such and such years. I have no desire to do that. Mm-hmm. Because, we're saying I do. I have no desire to do any of that you were talking about, because you are talking about a person that I do not know. I've been this person for years. We've been good. Why am I going to turn to a whole other person once we say I do? Like, kind of make it make sense. So, as a therapist, do you feel that at any stage, therapy can help a person get through?
Yes, I do. And the reason why I say that, one of the things that we speak about in therapy is what's called, excuse me, life cycles. So we continue to progress through life. We got the different phases. We were children, and then we grew up in a home, and then we launch out into adulthood. And so therapy can help with every phase. We get married, we have a family, our children are all grown and out the house, we're empty nesters now. Every phase, therapy can assist with that, because there are so many tools that are out there. There are so many things that we have. How can I say? We as therapists, we have knowledge of, that would allow us to help walk alongside you. That's my favorite term as a therapist. I'm not changing nothing in you. I'm not trying to change you or tell you how you should be. I'm walking alongside of you. And for those of you who are Christians, as I am a Christian counselor, if you think about the poem, I think it's called Footsteps in the Sand, where it speaks about how you see the footsteps. You don't see two sets, you see one, because Jesus is carrying you. He walks along, you know what I'm saying? So we walk alongside of you. So with that, there are so many people, and I kind of want to go back to your point of what you were saying with the book and the movie, if you don't mind, is that when we are in relationship or relations with others, what I found is, and I don't care, married, not co-workers within the church, we as a people have a bad, in my humble opinion, this is Shan'Trail King speaking, not the licensed therapist, whatever, this is Shan'Trail. We have a bad problem with trying to control the next person.
Right.
That's a problem. And I've often kind of processed on that myself, like, why do we as a people have a need to try to control the next person? A lot of times it's because we do not want to deal with our own stuff.
Ooh, well,
so once you have went to therapy, once you have did the work, once you are able to communicate in a healthy way, because those who are able to communicate in a healthy way don't have time to be talking about other people. For those who have done the work in therapy, you are feeling, it's almost like, for those who ever been to therapy, maybe you can relate to this. It's like those bags that we were carrying. I'm a very visual person. I love visuals. You're carrying these bags. Erykah Badu has a song called Bag Lady, and it speaks about how you're going to hurt your back because you're carrying all those bags like that. We walk through life carrying bags, but instead of doing the work in therapy in the different phases of our life, to go back to your question, where therapy can help and assist, we're dragging our bags, but then we're trying to tell the next person what they need to do with their bag.
Well,
I would just let that kind of marinate a little
bit. Right there, put a pin right there. No, but it's so true. And I think, like I think I mentioned earlier, some stuff is intentional, some stuff is unintentional, where you don't even know you're doing it. Sometimes I feel that people, they're not trying to do it to be malicious, but they've gotten to a place where they're like, okay, this will make both of us happy. But no, that is to make you happy. And this is a team situation. This is a pair. You are now one, or working to be one. So both parties have to have a say-so in how they feel and what they desire to have and what they expect from you. One of the things that I remember hearing, what was I watching? I think it was, oh Lord, they didn't make it. They're divorced now. I don't know if you know Tammy, forgot her last name, but she was married to a rapper named Waka Flocka, and they ended up having their own show. They started on Love and Hip Hop, and then they ended up branching off and having their own show. On the show, they were going to therapy. And this is something that I tried to bring into my own marriage, where the counselor kind of blew both of them up, to say, you keep doing things for her, or you keep doing things for her that you like, that you feel she will like, but is that you like it. You both have to work on expressing what you want out of the other person, so then there won't be any confusion. And so I just want to have your take on, do you sometimes see that people try so hard to please the other person, but without asking them, without actually taking in what they want? As in, if I'm telling you, okay, some men love to get their wives flowers, right? Some of the wives may not like flowers. And she's like, babe, I love that you think of me every week. I love it, but I don't really like flowers like that. It makes me think of funerals. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of a trigger for me. Like the smell of them, walking in the house. I've had so many people pass away in my family. I get it. I get that this is what men, I guess, supposed to do, but I would love you just wouldn't do it. You can give me candy or something, or maybe bring me a taco. I like tacos, but I really would rather not have the flowers. And then you keep bringing her flowers. It's going to cause something for no apparent reason. So what happens with that?
So it is very interesting that you bring that up, because what I hear in your example is that's traumatic for her, because what is tied to that is death, and a lot of death, especially because I remember growing up in one phase of my life. I think I was a teenager, about middle school, going in the 8th, 9th grade, that on both sides of my family, people were passing away, boom, 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 to the point where I didn't want to go to any more funerals. Yeah. So I get that piece, but it makes me think of Dr. Gary Chapman's book, The 5 Love Languages. He even have a quiz now that you can take. And so as an individual, this is my love language. Going back to what I was saying earlier, what is love to you? And so when you are able to communicate that, to say, baby, I love you, thank you so much. And it's kind of funny, not to make it, personal and take it away from therapy, but that is the same thing that I told my husband. Baby, I don't like flowers, because not like that, not roses, because you're going to spend $250 on these roses at Valentine's Day, and all the things. And instead of him getting it often, he would just get it every now and then, right. Which I don't have a problem with that. But in the situation that you gave, what I would love to encourage couples, and I often do in therapy, is speak to the language that your spouse loves. That's why it's called love language. Right. So for me, I know my love language is words of affirmation. My husband likes to do, he likes to help, whatever the case may be. But I love words of affirmation. So when he affirmed me with his words, he is feeling my love language. He's feeling my love bank. But a lot of times individuals would just say, well, I'm trying my best. They get frustrated. I'm trying to do it. I'm trying my best, especially husbands. But then again, as a therapist, I would start pulling back onion layers in therapy if this was a problem. One of the main questions that I will probably do and ask was, who was your example and who showed love in the home when you were growing up?
Right.
And if that person didn't have, then that lets me know as a licensed professional, okay, that may, as a marriage counselor, that may be what you're struggling. That's the struggle. That could be a possible root, right. Not to say that it is. So that is a very important key. And I'm going to give another free nugget for those of you who are not married, but you decide to be married. You already, you're going to go to premarital counseling. But a nugget that I would like to share is, while you're in the courting phase, the dating phase, if you love, and you're a sucker for love, as they say, have asked the individual. It's okay to ask questions that you're in love with, to say, what does love look like to you? And who was your example of love growing up in the home? Because a lot of people, I just had a conversation with good friends last night about this, and we were talking, a lot of people did not have healthy, functioning love portrayed for them while they were growing up in their home. So they truly don't know what love is. They're grasping as they are going through life. And then they get frustrated because I'm trying to do the best that I'm trying to do, even though I'm not listening to what you say is your love language. So,
ooh, that was a lot. So now, okay, back to our topic, of mental health matters, looking at, therapy with purpose, and thinking about trauma. What can you leave the people with, to remember that you feel that maybe this will help them to take therapy or look at therapy as a serious option if they want to be better. They want to be better in their relationships. They want to be better as a person, when it comes to self-love, because, if you don't have self-love, or you don't have love within you, how can you give to someone else? So what can you, leave the people with today connected to our topics?
Definitely what I would say is, when it comes to therapy, just what we were saying with our title, attend therapy on purpose and with a purpose. Be intentional when you attend therapy. Attend therapy not because people are pointing a finger saying that you should go and you feel like you're being harassed to go, but go because you desire to go and you desire to have change. You desire to have your relationships better with your coworkers, your church members, your husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, children, whatever the case may be. Do it, and do it on purpose.
Right.
That is the biggest thing. When it comes to trauma, what I would say is this: with trauma, I would just say, if you allow yourself, because a lot of us do not allow ourselves to just sit in silence, just sit and think. One of the things, and this is not everybody, you continue on that hamster wheel, going, so you don't have to stop and sit and think. Because when you sit and think, some of those traumatic things may come up. But if you are asking the question after watching this show, this podcast, then kind of think about your family and what you remember on both sides. What are some traumatic things? And do you see a repeated pattern of that? Because a lot of people will attend therapy because they do not want those repeated patterns to continue on through them down to their children and grandchildren. They want it to stop, and is known as a generational curse breaker. They wanted to stop with them. So let me go to therapy and do the work, so that way I don't have to cuss my children out the way that I was cussed out in my home. Or that way I don't have to make excuses when someone has been sexually molested, repeatedly, and nobody said anything. But I get mad when I see pedophiles being called out on the news, but I'm hush hush when it comes to my own home. So think about those generational patterns when it comes to trauma, and then ask yourself, do you want it to stop with you? That right there, for a lot of generational curse breakers, has been the foundation as to why they sought therapy, and not only sought it, but they stuck with it. So that's what I was sharing.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Shan'Trail. Shan'Trail, please share information about your book and definitely about the business with your husband for the counseling. But yes, please share the information about the book.
Okay. So the book that I wrote was I Cannot Love You Because I Am Broken. And it's interesting that we spoke about love during this show and trauma and different things like that. I don't want to give it away unless, Lady She decides that she want to do a podcast on that, because there's a lot of nuggets that can be pulled out in that information. So you never know. Our next podcast, we might be talking about that. But I Cannot Love You Because I Am Broken. If you would like to purchase a copy of the book, go to marriagemondayswiththekings.com. It is also on Amazon, but it's cheaper at marriagemondayswiththekings.com. Our business is called, again, Ear to Hear Consulting and Counseling. We are located in the great state of Texas. You can visit our website at eartohearcounseling.com. And if you would like to call us, our number is 254-450-2950 for those who would like a free 15-minute consultation to start counseling. But again, we're only licensed in the great state of Texas.
All right. And listen, make sure you follow them on social media as well. You guys are on Instagram, correct?
Yes, we are on Facebook, Instagram, soon to be TikTok, soon to be YouTube, all of them.
They ain't come to play. They're coming to help the people. Okay. Yes. So you guys make sure you contact them for your 15-minute consultation. We got to be generational curse breakers.
Yes,
we have to, and we have to show the next generation that it can be done, so listen, Ms. Shan'Trail King, thank you so much. There was so many jewels today. I don't know where to begin, but I mean, thank you so much for sharing your expertise. Like I said, guys, make sure, you purchase her book on their website. Check out their website. Absolutely. Check out their website too, as well. I'm not just mentioning the book because she's on here. The book literally got all in my business, child. Like, I'm telling you, she was all in my business, but I'm grateful. I am grateful because, that is how the God we serve operates. He gives you what you need in the time that you need it. So thank you once again, Shan'Trail King, for sharing your gifts, with all of us. And we look forward to our next interview, our next conversation dealing with mental health matters. and relationships, which is their niche, relationships and marriage counseling. So thank you once again, and we will see you guys soon.